again and actually confirm it for myself. I have the ability to be there in full consciousness. I have the ability to make conscious decisions. An out-of-body experience is not like a flighty little experience where you're floating around the ceiling. You're like you are right now, except you're vibrating at a finer rate. I like to make that very clear. Many times your awareness is actually, your thought processes is much more enhanced because you're no longer using the biological hard drive. So everything is actually in many ways clearer, more concise. But the power of this is that I can confirm it. If I have a doubt, I can confront. If, for instance, if somebody was to come to me and say that they are so-and-so, I can confront them. I can actually, what do you represent? I can be demanding of any energy form that comes close to me to verify whether that form is an actual reality or not a thought form, for instance, or just a figment of my own creation. We have the ability to actually reconfirm our own experiences. And again, this is one of the things I teach in my workshops. In other words, I don't trust the outer form of anything that I encounter because everything is created by thought. We have to be very discerning on all the information we receive. And there's various techniques that we can use to absolutely know that we are getting the correct information and not some facade.
Okay, so as you're talking, I'm thinking of things like lucid dreaming, remote viewing, shamanic journeys. These are all different techniques that various Sounds True authors have taught. What's the relationship between the way you teach out-of-body experiences and lucid dreaming, remote viewing, shamanic journeying? Just to name three that I think are relatively well known.
Well, number one, lucid dreaming is I don't perceive out-of-body experiences to be anything like a lucid dream. I feel strongly that all spiritual traditions, including shamanism, the core element of shamanism involves this transition of consciousness into the various worlds, whether it be the lower realm, the middle, the upper, but it's all about the shift of consciousness. There is a relationship to shamanism, especially in out-of-body experiences. I had the opportunity to train for many weeks with a shaman in Peru, and he told me that his core ability was to actually leave his physical body, and because that's where the best healing was achieved. That's where he was interacting one-on-one with his client. So that was a powerful part of shamanism. The core element, I feel, of all spiritual traditions revolves around this transition, or let's just say expansion of awareness beyond the body. A classic example was Islam, now that we're bringing in different paths.
Sure.
What is the night journey of Muhammad but an out-of-body experience? When you strip away the semantics, and he specifically writes about this journey through 7 dimensions, and entering each dimension is a different vibration rate, different color, and he's moving through this, and he's encountering angels. Of course, he's interpreting his out-of-body experience based on his cultural background. And this has been done for centuries. The same applies to the Bible. In Revelations, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. It begins with this. And then I heard behind me a great voice. What does I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day mean? Could it not mean I was out of my body if he lived today? Every spiritual tradition has, in a sense, created their own vocabulary that has limited, in many ways, our understanding of what that core experience was. I feel strongly that the core element of all spiritual paths involve this transcending of consciousness beyond our physical limits. It doesn't matter. Even nirvana. What is the Buddhist nirvana? If you look at the core element, they're all moving beyond this 3D dense world. How they get there, the practices they use may be different, but they're all moving inward within themselves into higher vibratory worlds. And they're experiencing these profound experiences in beyond their physical body. Whether it be Buddha or Krishna or Muhammad Or St. Paul in 1 Corinthians talks about whether in the body or out of the body. All of these people were having, I feel, out-of-body experiences, but they were interpreting it along their own cultural guidelines.
Okay, and just to sew up a little bit the question that I asked you, so you said shamanic journeying is quite similar in some ways in terms of this shift in consciousness that takes place in the journey. You're traveling outside your body. But you said that lucid dreaming is not like what you're teaching.
Well, I made a separation of lucid dreaming because I feel lucid dreaming is in many ways a low-powered experience. Based on my 40 years of experience, I've found that there's a continuum of consciousness that flows inward and outward in the universe. And I write about this extensively. In other words, we are travelers moving our consciousness inward into the universe at death, during near death, and during OBEs. And during deep meditation, we're moving inward then. Outward is, of course, when we're born. So lucid dreaming is, in a sense, a low-powered OBE in one aspect. It's a portion. We're starting to become more aware of our dream body, which, by the way, is a form of an energy body. But I don't want this connection to be made in such a way that people perceive it as, oh, well, all OBEs are lucid dreams.
Okay.
In a way, there's a deep connection because during an out-of-body experience, it's a raw reality going on. Your I-ness, your entire presence is there. You are as there as we are here.
Yeah.
There's no, the reality just doesn't change in shape at the whims. You are often at the beginning in a room just like this with all the three-dimensional trappings. You're just observing it from a different angle. It's radically different from a lucid dream. But what I found interesting, now that you bring up dreams, based on out-of-body exploration and a lot of research, everybody leaves their body when they fall to sleep. I've observed this, and many others have. When people fall to sleep, they're actually beginning to separate from their body. Their denser energy body, or what many people call the astral. I don't generally use that term. But they're beginning to separate. They're actually moving out of sync with their physical body during sleep. And you can observe this during an out-of-body experience. I've done this. And it almost looks like a double image. I'm not saying they float up at the ceiling. They're floating out of sync with their bodies. All 6.5 billion of us are doing this every night. We're floating about 3 inches or so out of sync. So in a sense, all of us are having an out-of-body experience every night. It's just